Okay. Well, hi everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Ça me fait un plaisir d'être ici avec vous. J'ai juste eu une très importante conversation avec les Canadiens qui habitent dans mon comté. On a été focusé sur les défis autour du logement. On a pris l'opportunité de parler du compte d'épargne libre d'impôt pour l'achat d'une première propriété. Mais pour moi, la chose la plus importante était d'être à l'écoute surtout aux jeunes Canadiens et Canadiennes. So hi everyone, thank you very much for being here. And thank you very much for the Y for hosting us. I really appreciate it. We're here in my riding of University Rosedale, and it's been... Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. And it's been a chance, I've just had a chance to have a really useful conversation with young Canadians, many of them people who live in my riding, who've actually been in touch with my constituency office. We focused on a challenge that I think many young Canadians would define as the single biggest challenge in their lives, and that is the challenge of housing and affordability. And they talked about the challenges that they're facing in their lives. It was a chance for me and for some people in financial services to highlight the first home savings account, which has been available since April and actually has had very, very strong pickup. A lot of particularly young Canadians are using this as a way to save for that first down payment. And many of the people around the table talked about how they do already have a first home savings account. So it was an opportunity to highlight that. But mostly for me, it was an opportunity to hear from young Canadians, from people in my own community, about the challenges they're facing. Okay, je suis prête à répondre à vos questions.
Right.
Happy to answer your questions.
Welcome to today's press conference. It'll be one question, one follow-up. Bienvenue à la conférence de presse. Ce sera une question et une question en suivi. Merci.
Good morning, Deputy Prime Minister. Simon Dingley from CBC National News. Ms. Freeland, Poland has called one of its consuls back because he wouldn't gather information on the social and political activities of Polish Canadians. How do you feel about foreign governments gathering information on Canadian citizens, and what is your government going to do about it?
Okay, well, thank you for the question, Simon, and I'm unaware of the specific incident that you mentioned, so I'm not going to comment on that specifically. But let me just say generally, our government is very aware, I think all Canadians are very aware, that foreign interference is happening in Canada, and foreign interference really isn't acceptable. And it's something that our government is very focused on, and very focused on protecting Canada and our democracy.
Madame Vice-Premier Ministre, puis-je avoir la même réponse en français sur la situation avec Pologne maintenant?
Oui, merci beaucoup, Simon. C'est une nouvelle pour moi. Alors, je ne vais pas commenter cette situation en particulier, mais je peux dire en général que l'ingérence étrangère, c'est vraiment un enjeu pour le Canada, pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes et pour notre démocratie. Et notre gouvernement est très, très clair qu'on doit faire tous pour protéger notre pays et notre démocratie.
Okay, thank you. And second question, an Ontario question, Deputy Prime Minister. How do you feel about Ontario's Premier Doug Ford saying he will not revisit land swaps in the Greenbelt just north of Toronto, despite Ontario's Attorney General Bonnie Lysyk saying the Ford government was influenced by developers?
You know, I know that the Greenbelt is really, really important for very many people in Ontario. This is such a beautiful province, and our nature is really, really important to us. It's important for us to treasure it. I think everyone in Ontario followed the Auditor General's report very closely yesterday, and I think specific questions on that report are for the provincial government to answer.
Okay. En français aussi, s'il vous plaît.
Je pense que tous les Ontariens et Ontariennes apprécient énormément la beauté naturelle de cette magnifique province. C'est très important pour nous tous. Concernant l'analyse de Madame Lissik, je pense que tous les gens de notre province ont suivi l'annonce hier, mais c'est pour la province de répondre aux questions qu'elle a posées.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next question. Prochaine question.
Ian Bix with the Canadian Press. Just on the home savings plan, critics say that it is going to further inflate prices. What are you prepared to do to actually reduce housing prices to make housing more affordable for everyone?
Well, first of all, on the first home savings account, we launched it to make it easier for young people to buy a home. And hearing from young people who live in my riding, some of whom have gotten directly in touch with my office. That's one of the reasons, one of the ways that we were able to find people. You know, what they really were saying is this is a crisis, and this is an intergenerational crisis. And I really recognize that. And that's why I really believe that it's important for us at the federal level, the provincial level, the municipal level, to put forward all the tools we can to resolve this crisis, and in particular to help the people who are being affected by it the most. And very, very often, this is a challenge that confronts young people particularly. So I am glad to see the take-up of the first home savings account for people buying their first home. That's a group that we particularly need to support. I'm glad that people are recognizing this is a way to help save for their down payment and that people are using that. I also agree with the premise of the question that a big challenge, the core challenge, is just the math of Canada's population, Canada's housing stock. We do need to build more homes for a growing country. I think it's a really good thing that the Canadian economy is growing and that Canada's population is growing. It's also the case that the housing supply is not keeping up, and our government is absolutely focused on working with provinces, with municipalities to get more homes built in Canada. The Housing Accelerator Fund, which is now available, $4 billion to create a real race to the top for Canadian municipalities to come to us with plans to get more homes built. That's one example of the work we're doing. We have a great new Minister of Housing and Infrastructure. I'm actually going to be talking to him this afternoon. This meeting was one way for me to get ready for that conversation, and I can assure you he is laser focused, I am laser focused, the Prime Minister is laser focused on getting more homes built for a growing country.
And what's your sense of how much housing prices need to fall to achieve affordability?
Again, that question was yours. Those were not my words. What I will say is we recognize that housing affordability is a huge challenge for a lot of Canadians, especially Canadians like the young people I was speaking to today. And we also recognize a key part of the solution is simple to say, hard to accomplish, and that is simply get more homes built in Canada. We're focused on that.
All right, thank you. Next question, prochaine question.
Minister, thank you. Kurt Brownage with Global News. What should Canadians think after the Prime Minister recently in Hamilton was saying housing is not primarily a federal responsibility?
I think Canadians understand that, like so many big challenges that our country faces, the only way we are going to solve this challenge is with the federal government, the provincial government, and municipal governments working together. And I really believe that Canada is at its best. We are at our best when we find a way for all three levels of government to work together. And I know we can do it. You know, my experience with the NAFTA negotiations was we were strong because we had a Team Canada approach. I think our experience during COVID, which was a tragedy where, you know, every single COVID death was a tragedy, and of course we could learn lessons about how to do better, but broadly, Canada did pretty well. And the reason we did well is because we had a real Team Canada approach, federal, provincial, municipal. That kind of Team Canada approach is the thinking that we need to bring forward to solve the housing crisis, and I know that is very much the view of the Prime Minister.
And a quick follow-up. You're promoting the first-time homebuyers savings account today, but only 2 major financial institutions in the country are currently offering the account. What do you say to Canadians who want to open such an account but can't do it with the bank they're with?
Well, it is now available from 2 of the main financial institutions and a number of other financial institutions, 2 of whom were represented here today. What we have heard, which is really encouraging, is from the institutions that are currently offering the first home savings account, the uptake is exceeding their expectations. They are finding there are a lot of Canadians, particularly young Canadians, who recognize that this is a great way to save for a first home. And so I think one of my messages today, I have 2 messages about the first home savings account today. One is to be sure that young Canadians are aware that this exists, and it's not going to solve all their problems. I am not claiming that. But it's a little bit of help, and I want people to know that that help is there. And also a message to Canada's financial institutions that this is a savings, a way to save that young Canadians, you know, they're voting with their money. They're putting their money into these first home savings accounts at the institutions that make it available. It would be great to see this first home savings account more readily available across the country. And I did hear from one of the young people in the conversation today that he wants to open an account, has struggled a little bit with the mechanics.
Thank you.
All right. Next question. Prochaine question. No? Okay. Well, that concludes today's press conference. Thank you so much, everyone. C'est une fin la conférence de presse. Merci tout le monde.
Okay, thanks everyone for coming. Really appreciate it. And thanks again to the Y for hosting us.
Thank you.